You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Trump faces a scary new midterm nightmare, based on an article by John Stoher. Demoralization is not a vibe. It is a political weapon. The surface story. The reporting starts with a familiar midterm story. Republican voters are discouraged, and even a slice of the GOP base may stay home or flirt with Democrats. That is the shallow reading. The real question is not whether some Iowa or Michigan Republicans feel buyer's remorse. The real question is what happens when a government turns broken promises, criminality, and punishment into the daily texture of politics. Power is the point. Donald Trump holds the institutional power here, not his voters, not the pundits counting generic ballot leads like beads on a rosary. Trump and the GOP said they would fix the economy, inflation, and war. They did not. Then Trump moved into a second term that the piece describes as a sustained punishment for the humiliation of 2020. That matters because power is not just office. Power is the ability to make consequences land on ordinary people, and then demand credit for the pain. The tariffs described in the piece are not policy in any serious democratic sense. They are a protection racket. They force voters into a hostage choice. Accept the damage and keep the gangster, or reject the gangster and keep the damage. The real damage is broader than the GOP base. The article is right to notice that the GOP's problem is not limited to casual voters. A demoralized partisan base is a deeper crack, but it stops too short if it treats demoralization as mostly a Republican embarrassment. The more important fact is that demoralization is spreading because the public is being trained to believe that there are no durable remedies. Trump's agenda is criminal in character, and the institutions that should constrain him have too often normalized his impunity. When the state behaves like a protection racket and the checks on it act as if this is merely polarization, people do not become more civic-minded. They disengage. Democrats are not absorbing the anti-Trump mood. There is a separate problem inside the Democratic coalition, and the article acknowledges it but does not fully name it. Disapproval of Trump is not automatically becoming support for Democrats. That is not a mystery. Anti-Republican energy is not the same thing as belief that Democrats will use power well. Some of that is on Democrats. They have spent too much time accommodating tyranny and too little time fighting it with force, discipline, and material clarity. Some of that is structural. After years of watching institutions flinch, voters have reason to wonder whether a Democratic victory changes anything beyond the signage on the door. If Democrats want the anti-Trump coalition to hold, they need to offer more than a return to normality. Normality is what got broken. The misdirection problem. The weakest framing in stories like this is the temptation to treat democratic exhaustion as a mood disorder. It is not. It is an outcome produced by visible impunity, failed accountability, and elite cowardice. This is where the article is strongest. It recognizes that the country is not merely divided. It is being governed through exhaustion, but it still risks underplaying who benefits from that exhaustion. A demoralized electorate is useful to authoritarians. It makes resistance feel futile and renders abuse routine. Once that happens, the damage is no longer confined to one party's turn-up problem. It becomes a regime condition. The systemic lesson. The larger pattern is simple. Authoritarian politics does not need widespread enthusiasm if it can produce enough resignation. Trump's project is not only to win, it is to make good faith politics feel pointless, to convert public life into a series of punishments, and to hollow out the belief that collective action can still matter. That is the real stakes of this story. Not whether a few disillusioned Republicans stay home, whether a democracy can survive once too many people, across partisan lines, decide the game is fixed and the institutions meant to protect them have already folded. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article, with the automated voice of Labritz R. Thanks for listening.